See, whether we believe it or not, Brother Jerry, we all understand who Christ is to a point. We all believe in some way, form, or fashion. We've heard a lot of us from our youth up, are raised to understand who that Christ is. Like Brother Darrell just the other night. Myself, I was raised to understand who Christ was. I had a wonderful mother and father who taught me. It didn't save me, but taught me who He was. And kind of like the world today, that they'll acknowledge and say, yes, I know who you're talking about. I know that man Jesus, He's the Son of God. But it's just with the lips that they understand, and with the mind maybe just a little bit, because of what they've heard or what they might have understood somewhat. But today I can tell you that it takes just a little more than understanding with an outward acknowledgement of the mind. But it takes an inward, an acknowledgement by the heart of understanding who this man is. I can tell you today that Peter understood who he was, and he trusted in him. Brother Bo, I understand who he is. I've heard it from my youth up, Brother Jerry, but that didn't save me. Today, we preach the gospel. We preach Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Today, and that's what if the Lord blesses me to preach anything at all, Brother John, that's all that I know, and that's all that I understand to preach. I know that sometimes we can read maybe how that Paul in all his great knowledge and all his great understanding of knowing the law and the words and how that he could even quote it, how he had all this, but Brother Jerry, even above all that knowledge and understanding he had, he said, I claim to know nothing among you other than Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Why would we begin to say anything else? I'm not worried about it. I'm going to tell them about Jesus because, we preach the gospel here, and I'm going to ask you a question. How many times, Brother Bo, do you think that the gospel's been preached over these 2,000 and so years since Christ had let Him take His life upon a cross, since He rose on that third and appointed morning? Brother John, how many times do you think that the gospel has been preached? It's been preached hundreds of thousands of millions of times, and it's preach and repreach, preach and repreach. It's the same thing, and it's the same thing that I declare unto you today. Is this man named Jesus? You know what? I was raised in church from my youth. I was raised understanding who the Lord was and who Christ was. That didn't save me. You know how many times that I even heard the gospel with maybe a natural ear as I was raised in church houses. As I grew up listening to Mom, I began to put those tapes in and began to play those old songs and those preachers who preached the gospel for years before I even come along. But you know what? One day I sat in the back of a church house and I heard the gospel preached, Brother John. You mean, was it different? Yeah, I heard it for the first time in my life. And that's how it is today. As preach and repreach. It may be the same old thing to you. You know what? But God chose by the foolishness of preaching to save those who would believe. Brother Bo, I heard it for the very first time in my life. And it touched me deep in my heart. And I began to seek out. I began at that time, Brother Earl, to begin. The Lord blessed me to be able to see some things I never saw before in my life. I began to have some eyes to see with. I began to have some ears to hear with. And I saw something. I saw my soul for what it was. I saw my home. And I saw a road that I was beginning to travel on. And what was that road? There's a broad road today. And it's an easy way. And it's a way that everybody likes because they can just do what they want to do. And that's what I was doing. Brother Dare, I was living by the book of Willie. And it was a pretty good book. And if it didn't go my way, I'd just change it a little bit. And I would keep going until the Lord opened my eyes one day. And He let me see. What did He let me see? That I was on the wrong road. and I began to understand that the end of that road was hell, was death, and I didn't want no part of it, and I never realized it before. But that's what the gospel will do to you. That's what the Spirit of God will give you some understanding. That's right. It's a spirit of knowledge. It'll open some things up to you. It'll allow you to see some things. But I began to hear the gospel for the very first time, and it touched me. We don't know today if they're preaching up here, if it'll touch anybody in the house. But you know what? We just preach it and re-preach. God knows where it needs to go. He knows what heart it needs to touch. He knows exactly how, you know what? He knows all things, Brother Bo. He knows how we hurt. He knows when we have joy. He knows when we have pain. You know that the very hairs upon your head, that they're numbered, and the Lord knows them. He knows everything about you. I can stand here, and I can begin to look out among the crowd, and I can see all kinds of people in different forms and different ways of life. There's difference in everybody. But yet we all got one master. We're either going to love the Lord or we're not going to love Him. We're going to, people say, I tell you what, somebody told me that one time, said, well, you're either going to love the Lord, you're going to serve Him, or you're going to serve the devil. I said, hey, hold on now. Hold on. I mean, you're going to tell me that I'm serving the devil? I said, well, I don't do those things. Brother Darrell, you could have not changed my mind at that point in time. You couldn't have made me understood that. I said, what are you talking about? You're telling me that I'm going to serve the devil. You know, I said, wait a minute. I was raised in a church house, and I saw men and women, how that they'd get excited about Jesus. How that they would get excited and shout praises to the Lord. And I heard them all those years of how they would sing praises unto the Lord. So I took that to the other side and said, they said, well, you're either going to serve the Lord or you're going to serve Satan. I said, well, I ain't serving Satan. That's the craziest thing I ever heard. The Lord let me understand. There's absolutely no middle ground.